All right. So, generally speaking, most of you who are here know this, and some of you are new, so welcome. We generally do chamber cafes the first and third Friday of every month. They're open to the public, no membership is required, and there is no cost to attend. The schedule is always up on the chamber website, and as you know, we just barely escape being called spammers with all the reminders that we send out. So if you miss the reminders, check the calendar. But if you're not getting our emails, oh, please let us know because we just love you to get more junk mail in your inbox. You are all muted when you enter so that we keep the ambient noise down. But if in fact you want to speak at some point, unmute. And we are recording, as you have heard. So we will put that recording up on our YouTube channel within 2 business days, usually. And this will be no exception. We generally have 30 to 50 signups for these cafes, and today is no exception. And we lose about 50% between sign up and log on. And from what I heard yesterday from Betsy, she loses even more. So welcome, Betsy. We have the best of intentions, I know, when we all register for these Zoom meetings, and then stuff happens and we get triple booked. So we know that. We do send an e-blast out, letting people know that it's up on YouTube, and it is a very wide audience that we send to. We generally get a couple of dozen views the first day it goes up, and a couple of hundred in the weeks that follow. During the cafe, if you have any questions, please do enter them into the chat. After Richard's presentation, we will go through the chat questions, and then the few that I've sort of downloaded from our Facebook team at that point. And if for any reason we don't get to your question or you didn't like the answer, I know Richard will be happy to answer that after the meeting. At the end of, yeah, see? At the end of the cafe, after the questions, we have a few minutes called brieflies where Richard and myself and all of you can share what's going on in your organization or your business. If you have a sale coming up or an event, it's a good time to get the word out to a different community maybe than you reach all the time. And today, Richard is presenting a study that's not only fascinating, but really timely as we are kind of seemingly cautiously emerging from the cloud of COVID. Richard, as most of you know, is the executive director of the Jefferson Land Trust, which is a key organization in our communities. And I'm going to turn this meeting over to him to walk us through this fascinating survey and its impact in our community. Richard?
Thank you, Arlene. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get the presentation up. Then I'll talk about the origins of this study and why it was important and how it all came about. So let me go ahead and see if I can get this done. Technology and I are not always good friends, especially with my vision, but I will go ahead and get it up and start talking about it. Let's see, share screen, there we go. And then it's going to be, okay, go back to the top.
Perfect.
I'll go ahead and put it in slide presentation mode, slideshow mode. Okay, perfect. And slideshow. Great. How can everybody see this the presentation?
Perfect.
Great. Okay. To tell you a little bit about the genesis of this study, and one of my previous employees, I worked for the Trust for Public Land in Atlanta, Georgia, doing acquisition and conveyance for the Atlanta Beltline project, which was a 23-mile loop of parks and green space in central Atlanta. And one thing I learned by working for the Trust for Public Land is they had this whole arm of the organization that did economic benefit studies. And it was mainly at that time for urban environments, for cities and for counties, looking at the benefits of parks and green space the benefits of maintaining the parks and green space that you have, and they actually put a dollar value to it. And this is important because, especially in different parts of the country, there are different messages about conservation that resonate with people. It's not always we want to do this because it makes us feel good, because we value habitat, we value farmland, we value our working landscapes because it's part of our community. But also the other messages that they would often use is it's part of our heritage, it's part of our history. It makes this community what it is. But then there's another whole audience that while the rest of it, they shake their head and go, yeah, that makes sense, that makes sense. But does it do any good for the economy? And so for those individuals and for those organizations, the providing numbers has been proven to be very helpful, especially when you can say that this segment of our economy, because of the conservation work that's being done, contributes X number of jobs and X number of dollars of payroll or wages into the local economy. So 6 years ago when I came here, I met with our fellow land trust to the west, the North Olympic Land Trust, and the director, Tom Sanford. And we were sitting out at Jimmy Come Lately Creek talking about finding ways of having our two organizations work more closely together because we share the North Olympic Peninsula. There's a lot that we have in common. The county boundaries make no sense, especially Jefferson County boundaries. And so we were looking at different ways of collaborating. And we've done a number of collaborations. And just so I don't know if you know, but I'm on the North Olympic Land Trust Board and Tom is on the Jefferson Land Trust Board. It's a way to share information that works really well. It builds trust between the organizations, and also we can collaborate, come up with some great ideas for joint projects. One of these projects is the economic benefit study. And when David Patton, who is the regional director for Trust for Public Land, came on board, we got with him and said, you know, we want to do this type of a study for the North Olympic Peninsula. We think it would have value. It would actually answer some questions about, does conservation really add to the local economy, or is it a drain? Does it take money away from the cities and counties' tax base and what have you? And so we raised money. The legislature, Washington State Legislature, committed $50,000 to this study. We also brought in Kitsap County on a number of the analyses, but for those areas where I have the numbers for Jefferson County, I pulled them out in this presentation and I'll go through them. But this was completed earlier this year. We rolled it out to the North Olympic Development Commission Council, NODC. I think it was in February. And so now we're just starting to take it to other audiences just to share what we've learned. And I'm very excited about it, and I think it's very impressive. So let me go ahead and start the presentation. As you can see, it's authored by three organizations: the Jefferson Land Trust, North Olympic Land Trust, and the Trust for Public Land. And so what we're going to be looking at is just all the different types of benefits and millions of dollars which come into our local economies through the conservation work of not just the Land Trust and the Trust for Public Land, but other conservation organizations, and we have many. We have the North Olympic Salmon Coalition. We have other organizations that we partner with. But we wanted to get the study done, and so we actually stepped up and funded it. And we did this during the pandemic, so we had to make some allowances for that. But generally, the numbers that you'll see are valid. And what I hope we'll be able to show how we can come back. But we're going to start with the forest products industry. We all know that working forest land is part of the life out here in the North Olympic Peninsula. We have quite a bit of working forest land in Jefferson County, likewise in Clallam County, and also there are some in Kitsap, quite a bit. But it's not just the fact that we have these working forests, but also what they contribute. And when you look at Jefferson County, working forest land contributes to 271 direct jobs and payroll of over $17 million in wages. So that's pretty significant. And as we continue to protect the working forest land in the county, we hopefully will see that increase. Also through the work with what we're doing with community forests out in Chimocum Ridge, we are demonstrating a different type of harvest model where you actually have a more sustainable source of wood, not just a 40-year cycle where you clear cut or do an industrial cut and then allow forest to go back in the 40 years and start all over again. We're trying to encourage more of a regular harvest for forest health and also just to allow a diversity of species, but also that encourages the growth of mills. And we have a number of mills that are portable, and we have some that are actually stepping up to help us with our community forest project. But across the North Olympic Peninsula, we hope that by having more land protected and also in different harvest models, we'll actually have a more sustainable source of wood and wood products. The next one is, once again, with the forestry products, I mentioned the fact that we have $17 million of direct services. And also for carbon storage, which is a really important part, especially for regarding climate change and climate resilience. The amount of acreage we have in working forest land and protected forest land is worth $4.23 billion in carbon sequestration value, which on an annualized basis, $168 million a year if we had to go out and replace it. So that's a pretty significant. And it's really important when you look at the North Olympic Peninsula, it's one of the best regions in the country, if not the hemisphere, to sequester carbon. And for those of you who are familiar with that whole concept, it's taking the carbon out of the air and storing it. And so it reduces greenhouse gases. Our farm economy, I'm a big fan of our local farms. I like knowing where my food comes from. So do a lot of members of this community. It's important to know the farmer. It's important to know where it comes from, how it's grown. But also it's a source of revenue. It's also just a source of jobs. And then we have, in Jefferson County, there are 221 farms, 13,000 acres, not all protected, which is what makes our work even more important. And it results in $9.76 million in market value. And I'm sorry, but the truck for the trash for next door is picking up right now, so I apologize for the noise. Also, when we look at farmlands, let's see, conserved lands protect habitat and water quality. That's one of the feel-good things, but also it has a value. The value of landed fisheries in Jefferson County is $1.64 million in annual landings. And so it's not one of the larger sectors, but it is an important sector. It makes this community special, the fact that we have such abundance of seafood and shellfish, but it does have value. And I wanted to step back and talk a little bit more about the farming. When you look at the value of the jobs that it creates, and the fact that if you look at, good example, if you look at Chimocum Corners between the farm stand and Thin River Cidery, there's over 100 jobs that have been created by those two entities alone, and it's growing. Now there are different types of jobs. There's some more entry level, more minimum wage jobs, but all the way up to managerial jobs. But if you look at 15 years ago, those jobs did not exist. So it's and that's thanks to the farm, the agricultural sector. The other one that we talk about is areas is property values. Now this is one where I have to admit, in urban areas, this is you can quantify. We had to make some assumptions here. That in urban areas, there's studies that have shown that the closer you are to a park or green space or trail, the property values are increased. And in some cases, in some cities, it can be significant because of the location of the amenity. People like to be near trails, they like to be near parks, they like to be near green space, and therefore, the closer you are, there's more of a identifiable benefit. We realize here that we can't make that same assumption. And therefore, we had to make some modifications to the normal model and provide a lower increase because we're talking about conserved lands, working forest lands, farmlands, don't necessarily have the same impact on property values adjacency than they would to a park and green space in an urban environment. But there, you can, if you apply a percentage, I think it was a 5% increase for certain types of conserved land, mainly parks and green space and trails. It does result in increased property values, but also for the jurisdictions, it's additional revenue coming in through property taxes. And for the argument that the land trust, to give an example, takes lands off the property rolls or the tax rolls. First of all, the land trust doesn't do that on a regular basis. We pay property taxes on almost all the lands that we own for preserves. For the easements that we hold, the landowner still pays property taxes because they still own the property. But we only exempt a few of our properties because of the public value and the benefit that the public receives from those properties. So we don't take lands off, but also if this assumption is correct, then we're looking at increased property revenue, property tax revenue for Jefferson County of, let's see, where is it? Find my number. Here it is. It is $719,000 additional property tax revenue by having the conserved lands adjacent to some of these properties. The water quality, parks and green space, trails, conserved lands contribute to water quality and quantity through filtering and also through slowing down the runoff. Many jurisdictions pay for stormwater control because we have abundance of conserved land or natural lands in this county and also in the adjacent county. It has value because the jurisdictions don't have to go out and fix some of the stormwater problems or do some other types of filtration because the land naturally filters the stormwater. And so I believe for Jefferson County, we are looking at, let's see, as you can see, the different types of pollutants that the lands filter. And so we're looking at 1.9 million in stormwater management value that would have to be replaced by the jurisdictions involved if we didn't have the natural lands providing this filtering. A good example of this is Chimacum Ridge, where that ridge property, 800 or 900 acres, when they finally acquired it all, there are 19 tributaries of Chimacum Creek that come off that ridge that feed into Chimacum Creek, both stems. And what that means is that we have a steady source of clean water coming down off the ridge line, versus if it were developed, we may have water coming off that is not clean and the flow is disrupted. And what that water does is it provides irrigation for farmland down below. It's also the source of drinking water. It also is very vital for the salmon recovery efforts in Chimacum Creek that have been ongoing since the 1980s. So that's a good local example of how protecting forest land, especially under the new management model, actually contributes and protects the water quality and quantity in the Chimacum Valley. The other one is reducing air pollution. We all know that trees are essential for removing pollutants from the air. But that also has a value in the sense that it has health values as well as the reduction of nitrogen dioxide, ozone, particulate matter, and a variety of other pollutants. But that has a value, and if you translate that into health benefits, that the removal benefits of the local landscape, our conserved lands and our natural lands, has a value of 25.8 million in benefits of removal of those pollutants. So that's a pretty significant. And when you look at, once again, when we look at adjacency to trails, and when we complete the Olympic Discovery Trail and we'll connect to Larry Scott and have other systems of trails throughout the county, we will see those health benefits increase as well, because it's not just from the air quality benefits and air pollutant reduction, but also people exercise more if it makes it, if it's easier for them. And in some jurisdictions like Birmingham, Alabama, where I worked prior to coming here, we did a study, and the health benefits of the trail network was over $40 million a year in reduced health costs, according to the University of Alabama Birmingham Hospital. Now, also, as I mentioned earlier, the conserved lands and natural lands just bring people to our community. People want to live here. Over time, it will be, we'll see additional businesses come here because it is an attractive place to live, and it's hoped that we'll see new and more exciting businesses coming to the area as people are able to work remotely. They'll live where they want to live, and they live where they love. And I can tell you that I love where I live. And there are other people who are looking at this area as, I want to go out there and I want to work. I want to bring my skills. I want to bring my business out there. And it's all because we have this wonderful tapestry of conserved lands through habitat. We have trails. We have a growing trail network. We also have local farms and local forests. And so together, it provides a desirable place to live. And that has value as well. The other thing is, we talk about tourism, and people come here because it is a beautiful place. We've got the national park, which is like the giant on the peninsula for tourism. But there's also we're seeing a growing ecotourism. We're seeing a growing agritourism, where people come out here and do the farm tours, or they come out here and do the farmers markets, and they go to farm to table restaurants, because that whole local food movement is so important here. Likewise, people want to come out here and taste the local cider, and they want to go to the wineries. And so we're seeing that that's the draw, on top of the people who come here who want to hike or fish or camp. And so that's really important to see that as well. And when you look at recreational businesses, those businesses which depend upon tourists who want to go kayaking, fishing, or hiking, or what have you, that we see $110 million in sales, and it supports 962 jobs. Now, that number is for the 3-county area: Kitsap, Clallam, and Jefferson, just to be clear. When we look at strengthening economic development, once again, we are looking at, let's see, in Jefferson County, we have average spending of 2.6 million total annually on sports and rec equipment and exercise equipment, bicycles, what have you. And so that's significant. And when some people look at the numbers and go, well, that's not that big. When you realize we're a county of 30,000 people, it is very significant. And it's something that we should recognize. Let's see. We have a number of, as I mentioned, we have Olympic National Park, but we also have a number of state parks. And the state parks number for Jefferson County is quite significant. that the existence of our state parks brings in, and that's the Dosey Wallops. It's and some of the other state parks we have in Jefferson County, brings in $29.8 million a year annually in tourism revenue and visitor revenue. Now, as I mentioned before, the big one, of course, is $265 million coming in due to Olympic National Park. But once again, we're finding that the state parks for Jefferson County is a significant number. Plus, when you look at some of the other reasons people come to this county to visit, the value they're bringing in by buying our local farm products. We are hoping to create over time a market for our local wood. And through our project out at Valley View Forest, where we are actually working with some local mills to mill the trees that are being harvested as part of our forest health management. We hope to be able to keep the wood in the local area for local projects. This is just a composite slide of some of the benefits that we see. But actually, we were quite pleased with the results of the study. We are presenting this study next week at the Washington Association of Land Trust and the Oregon Association of Land Trust. They have an annual, or every 2 years, is called Land Camp. And it's where all the land trusts come together to share information and share successes. And we are sharing this study with our local land trusts in Washington and Oregon. And so I want to make sure that if you want to view the study, it's actually, you can go to our website, which is saveland.org. You can also access it through the TPL website, but it's easier just to go to ours. But I want to thank our local delegation in Olympia, and also who helped bring $50,000 to the table to commission the study. As I mentioned, the Jefferson Land Trust and Trust of Public Land and North Olympic Land Trust all contributed, and also there was additional fundraising that was needed to make it happen. We will be looking at this in later years to update it, but it gives us hope that we have a firm base from which we come out of this pandemic. We have a thriving local food. We have local wood. We also have our tourism, and also some of the other benefits that we have through our natural environment. So with that, I will take questions. And like I said, if you don't get a chance to ask me, you can always contact me here from Land Trust. I'm always happy to answer questions and talk about the work that we do, but also the work of other conservation organizations in this area, because we do it all through partnership. We don't do it standalone. It's not Jefferson Land Trust is doing this and doing that. We only do our work through partnerships, whether it's with local other land trusts, with other organizations, or businesses. But once again, partnership, collaboration, and collegiality is the key. And that's the quick review of the study, and I'll take questions.
So Richard, I don't see questions in the chat, but I have a couple from Facebook while you are unsharing your screen to make it easier for people to see each other. So the first question, well, actually there were three that are kind of more or less the same. As I unpack them, they're asking about clear cutting, and it seems to be happening everywhere.
Yes.
And could you explain the benefits of clear cutting, why people are doing it, and then the effects that it has and where the land trust stands on clear cutting?
Well, what you're seeing, clear cutting is happening on privately owned forest lands and also on some of these state lands. The benefits of clear cutting, I really can't enumerate, because I think there are better models for harvesting than a clear cut. I think more of a sustainable model is appropriate. So if you ask me what the land trust position is, on the lands that we manage, we are following a sustainable harvest model, and it's for mainly for the purposes of forest health, but also for a source of wood. For the Chimacum Ridge project and our Valley View Forest, which is off of Center Road, um, that harvest, which is occurring now, is for forest health, but also as part of the monies that we receive to purchase the property through the community forest grant program of the U.S. Um, we are required to do a harvest on occasion. Now, what I think what you're seeing now, there's been a lot of clear cutting on privately owned timberlands because the value of timber is through the roof right now. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of it that is harvested is exported. It doesn't remain in the community, and the land trust is trying to change that. We're trying to keep the timber in the community to be used for local projects. And so we're trying to demonstrate through our harvest that's occurring in Valley View Forest right now that that's possible and also has benefits. So it's happening now because there's value in those trees, and many of them have reached their typical rotation, which is about 40 years. And then they're usually harvested and then they're replanted. Now, from a carbon sequestration standpoint, you still will have growing trees, not as large as the ones that were harvested, but it is still valuable to have working forest lines, even if they apply a different forest harvest model.
Thank you, Richard. And I guess I have two questions that are pretty much the same, and they're looking for what the impact of this is on conservation. And that is, you have a new proposal for the Board of County Commissioners on green burial that's come out of the Jefferson Land Trust.
Yes. Jefferson Land Trust has been looking at conservation burial for a number of years. We actually had the board put together a working group before the pandemic to study conservation burial. Now, conservation burial is a it's slightly different from green burial in the sense that we are looking at using green burial techniques and green burial concept to help us advance our conservation work. So what we will be looking for is land where it's in need of help, it's in need of replanting, maybe it's been clear cut, maybe it's been disturbed, and using green burial as a way to restore that property by having the bodies placed in the ground and then planting different types of native vegetation on top. So over time, you will see a forest being created. And our goal was to create something that the community has obviously expressed interest in. We did a survey, and overwhelmingly people came back and said they like the idea of green burial, but they also like the fact that it be part of a conservation and restoration of a piece of property by using these techniques. Green burial, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's burial in the traditional sense that our great grandparents were buried in a pine box, a basket or a shroud with no embalming, no vaults, no lead line caskets. It's a very natural way of burial, and it was up until I think the 20th century was really what the practice was. We're taking it a different step by doing as part of a restoration tool. We also have the memorial forest concept, which is where you would go out to an established forest that is and placing the cremains in a particular area around a particular tree or a particular plot to provide that other alternative. I think 85 to 90% of the people in Jefferson County are cremated because they want alternatives to what is now considered traditional burial with embalming and the lead line caskets and all that. But people have said that yes, if we provide green burial in this county, there's definitely interest. And so what we're doing now is the board approved, Jefferson Land Trust board approved moving forward with setting up a new LLC to manage this, because state law requires that an organization that manages the cemetery has to be set up for that purpose. So, and whether we're doing a green burial or a traditional burial, we have to follow the cemetery rules and regulations. And so we will be doing that in the next couple of months, setting up the board of managers for the new organization which we're managing this project. It's before the Board of County Commissioner or the Planning Commission at this point because we are requesting a change that would allow cemeteries in forest zones. Right now, they can only be in rural residential and some other zones. But in order to make this concept work of conservation burial, we need to have the ability to place the cemetery, so to speak, in a forest zone area. That
Thank
was a
you.
long way to get to it, but if you have any further questions about our status, just let me know.
So there's a question in the chat from Jay, and it's about what is the impact on our housing crisis? And Jay, if you want to chime in and clarify that a little bit for Richard, that would be great.
Yeah, no, I mean, the work that you're doing is great, but I'm just wondering if your study had any information on how it impacts our current housing crisis.
You know, that's a very good question. That's why I qualified that one discussion about the increased property values, because that's not really been tested in a rural area. It was an assumption that was made that there is potentially an increase. But one of the things I've heard in my 6 years here at the Land Trust is by conserving land, we reduce the amount of developable land, therefore driving up prices. And what I always respond with is that we are conserving lands that need to be conserved for a variety of reasons. They have high conservation values. There is a lot of land outside of those areas with conservation values that are open for development. I think the biggest constraint we have in this county that affects housing values, and this is my personal opinion, is the lack of infrastructure to support it in those areas where appropriate. For example, I was asked once, why are we conserving land along Chimical Creek, which is in the urban growth area? Well, every urban growth area, every community, every city needs green space for quality of life issues, for just, you don't want to live in a community without a park, without a trail corridor, or especially along areas like the creek, you want to preserve the riparian areas because it's good for water quality. It's great for salmon habitat protection and also restoration. But once again, it provides a green ribbon through an urban area. Likewise, our project out in the Cripple Wildlife Corridor is a beloved project that we've been working on for 30 years. And it's, once again, it has a lot of development constraints. So it's appropriate to be conserved. There are definite wildlife values there. There are also a lot of community values. People like a place to hike, people like a place to walk. Kids need a place to play outside of the natural area. So once again, that's a green space that needs protection, and also that's what we're doing. But there are thousands of acres in this county which don't have those distinct features which require protection or conservation that are available for development. And I think the challenge for all of us is to identify those areas which are appropriate for development, provide the infrastructure, and then allow it to happen. But also recognize that conserved areas are necessary for quality of life, and especially for urban and suburban residents.
Yeah.
Jay, did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much what I thought. The only other comment was right now, the county, this is my own personal opinion, doesn't need any more tractors for people to come here. We've got plenty of people coming, but they can't find some place, and more would come if they could find a place to stay. So,
well, and I think what we're seeing now is, in the conservation community, we call it climate refugees. We're seeing a lot of people moving up from the southwest to escape the increasing temperatures I mean, the summer temperatures, if you look at some of the areas in the Southwest, it was an anomaly when they reached 112. Now it's commonplace during the summer to reach 112 degrees. Also, we're seeing a number of people moving up here from California and from Oregon because of the wildfire threat. So there's a lot of reasons why people are coming here. But I think that we know that the people are going to come. We need to make sure that we have places for them to live and we have affordable places for them to live. But also we need to protect those areas that need protection. So we have that balance. And the Land Trust is not opposed to development. We just want to make sure that we protect those areas like our working farmland, because there's certain soils which designate them as agricultural significant.
I personally, I agree completely. The task we have ahead of us is to be able to handle the increase of people while maintaining what we have.
Absolutely.
And so we thank you for that.
It's that balance we have to achieve.
Yeah.
So do I see any other questions from the crowd? And wave your hands now, even virtually, and we'll call on you. And if not, we will move forward. Seeing none, I'm going to tell you, Richard, thank you so much, first of all, because this is so timely and there's a whole bunch more questions. Yes, thank you, Ben. This is fascinating, and I hope you'll come back and sort of dig down a little deeper in some of this. And I know that there's some more questions that I'm going to forward to you as well. They're much less general. Our next Chamber Cafe is going to be on June 18th, and the format's going to be a little different. It's a panel, and it's one of our community showcases, and we're going to be doing a few of them this summer. And this is Meet Port Ludlow. And we're going to have a panel representing a cross-section of local businesses, and they're going to describe their community offerings, the lifestyle that they have, the businesses there. I mean, shopping local is possible. We just have to know what's there and what's available so that we don't automatically click, give me 2 days of delivery, because you could just drive down the street and pick it up right in Port Ludlow. It's a fascinating place. There's a lot to see and do. And we're all going to learn more about it on the 18th. And then we have Port Hadlock coming up after that. We have scheduled at the Chamber, and please tell everyone you know, our semi-annual newcomers meetup on July 17th. It's a Saturday morning. It's going to be our first hybrid meeting. So it'll be Zoom and live. So, and if you don't want to come in, it's okay. We'll deliver your goodie bag to the car, with gloves and the whole 9 yards. But, or just wave as you drive by. But also, not only should you tell people, and not just if they just moved here, but if they've lived here for 6 months or so and still need to make some connections. Because if you've lived here for a while, you think, I wonder who could do this for me. I wonder if anybody knows, and fill in the blank, from dog sitter to carpenter. Everybody wants to know after they've been here for a while, where do you get your hair cut? Who can cut my lawn? There's all kinds of things. And it's not just chamber members, it's anyone. If you've got a new employee who needs to learn more about the community, this is a good meeting to send them to. And if you have anything you'd like to put in the goodie bags, we'd love to have them be overstuffed. So give us a call. Upuli is in charge of goodie bags through this event, and it's admin@jeffcountychamber.org. And now, raise your hand and speak. Who has something going on at their organization that they'd like to share? Oh, someone must be doing something in June or July. No? Betsy always has something going on. Welcome.
I'm actually being delinquent. I just wanted to say thank you to Richard and the Land Trust, because I got to observe and participate in their public process as they developed a vision for the Chimacum Community Forest. And I think it was really a great model of participation and just adding more and more voices to it, but still coming out with something really tangible and values-based. So I just wanted to say thank you, but I was slow on the draw to get that in. Thank you.
Well, Betsy, and also just want to say that the School of Wood and Boat Building is one of our most valued partners. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't do our work alone. And if it weren't for partners like you, we would have a really difficult time. So we value your partnership. And so thank you for that.
It's kind of a long shot, but yesterday Arlene and I were in a meeting on the Maritime Heritage area around Washington, and we were each allowed to do an update. And one of the updates I gave was the community forest, because I think it's both innovative and future oriented, but it also is helping us preserve traditions of sustainably using natural resources to do things like build boats.
Absolutely.
So, fun.
Build boats and build furniture. And keep an eye out for next year. Hopefully we will have locally made furniture and art from locally grown trees. And so, but I also wanted to say one thing, and you talk about what's going on in the organization. Aside from being director of Jefferson Land Trust this year, I have the honor of being the president of the board of the Jefferson Land Chamber of Commerce. And so I'm excited about that and the opportunities that the future holds, especially as we move out of the pandemic. And there's so much happening at the chamber. I could do a little commercial, but I won't, because I know that there's other people want to speak. But I just want to let you know, check out what's happening at the chamber. We have business mentoring, we have business classes, we have a community development fund that comes out of our dues. Our membership dues that actually supports the community, and we're looking at ways of growing that. There's so much happening with our connection now with the Better Business Bureau, and the chamber is, like I said, with partnerships with other organizations in this community, can really help make a difference. And I'm excited the fact that I recruited a member the other day who's joining the chamber at my suggestion, because of the benefits that they'll receive on membership. Although you don't have to be a member to get the benefits of having the chamber in our community. So.
Thank you for the commercial, Richard. And it's nice to hear it from somebody else besides me all the time.
I'm just very enthusiastic.
Anybody else? Diana, what's going on at the resort?
So we're, gearing up for summer, still looking for staff, as I'm sure most of retail is. And but we are doing a cider dinner with Finn River, and that's going very well. As a matter of fact, it's almost sold out. We're keeping it small so we can still make sure we're following all the CDC Jefferson County guidelines. But those have been very successful. People want to get out. It's outside on the veranda. We're doing, let's see, we have a wedge clinic at the golf course, as well as doing a number of lessons. And we have a ladies invitational happening, and we have a USGA junior tournament here. If you've never actually seen or stood near a junior golfer, I feel like I'm watching a pro just at a much younger age. They're amazing and so talented. They can hit a ball so far, and it doesn't even look like they're moving, and they're tiny. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes me want to go practice a little more. And that's about it. But it's we're enjoying the sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
It is lovely this week. Well, we want to be respectful of your time, and if I'm not seeing any other hands raised, we're going to thank Richard again for a great presentation. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you on the 18th, and have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, shop local.
Absolutely.